Hi and welcome everyone. This is the Hobo Prepper and I am Friar Tuck. Thank you for joining me today. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about preparing for Cybergeddon. And if you guys remember during my last live stream, I talked about Cybergeddon and fifth generation warfare, which is going to be the primary topic here today. And just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a heads up, I am going through the transition and learning curve of learning how to be able to read a script and fluctuate my voice. So I do apologize if it seems like I'm not paying attention to the camera, or if for some reason my voice isn't fluctuating enough. Part of that is just me going through the learning curve of learning how to fluctuate my voice with the with reading a script. So many of you may be asking, what is Cybergeddon? And until recently, it has been a term that few people have talked about. However, with the emergence of fifth generation warfare and hacktivism, not activism, but hacktivism. Okay, it's hackers who are hackers who are activists. The world has become a more dangerous place as we evolve to embrace the new technologies that we're coming up with every day. And this is happening at such a very fast pace. The importance of cybersecurity has grown with it. So you might be asking yourself, what is fifth generation warfare? Fifth generation warfare is something that has been recently talked about by a small handful of military leaders, including generals. It is part of the natural evolution of warfare. First generation warfare was fought with large armies using crafted tools such as a phalanx. Second generation warfare was the introduction of muskets and gunpowder. Third generation warfare is focused on speed. And fourth generation warfare was the decentralization of the military, where private companies like the Wagner Group or BlackRock are contracted by governments to wage war on their behalf. The introduction of fifth generation warfare means that wars will be fought less on the battlefield and more in the public square. The average person, when thinking about a war, they think that future wars will be fought on the battlefield like it was in World War II or Vietnam. There is little public support for wars with heavy casualties nowadays. If you remember, in Iraq, we had 2 or 3 casualties, and then all of a sudden we had, protests in the streets. So this has caused state actors and governments to change the way that they wage war from the battlefield to places like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And most people are unaware that Americans lost Vietnam due to tactics that are being commonly used in fifth generation warfare. So if you ask anyone who lived during that time, they will tell you that when support for the war was lost at home, the Vietnam War was lost. Ho Chi Minh and the communists, they were able to infiltrate our society and erode us from within through protests and showing what was really happening in Vietnam. If you guys remember the stories about baby killers and stuff like that. And something that my great uncle used to tell me is that they would come running up to you, you wouldn't know. And so they would strap children with like C4 and things like this, and then they would blow themselves up. And so a lot of these soldiers became very paranoid, and that's why they got the whole name baby killers. But that was part of the propaganda that the communists used on the American public to turn support away from the war, to support or excuse me, to turn support from the war to away from the war. And although it may not be talked about, the American government did take note and has prepared itself to master this new form of warfare. The average person does not realize that America has been defending itself from this new type of warfare since 2020 with misinformation surrounding the presidential election. And as Americans, we are tied to technology, and it's easy to get a story to take traction for both sides. One side says this, the other side says that, and then what it does is, as a result, it's causing an even wider division within our country that has led to protests and other forms of civil unrest. You may think that this was the end of it, but it was only the beginning. Since the 2020 election, America has dealt with an ever-increasing amount of cyber attacks from state and non-state actors that have attacked our financial institutions, our food supply, and our energy production. And most recently, we just had a major hack to a couple of the largest financial institutions for our country. And it's made the news, at least the written news online, but you're not going to hear about it on mainstream media. Over the last couple of years, we've even seen single individuals, not armies, attack, power stations, if you remember what happened last winter, or incite civil unrest over issues that would otherwise be non-controversial, such as the George Floyd protests. Unfortunately, America is at war and doesn't even know it because the information is so tainted out there. Also this information is being suppressed, or spun in such a way that it just sows even more distrust. In the modern era of the third millennium, wars will be waged over the internet. This in turn will lead to a revolution in cybersecurity to protect privacy and property from those who would like to cause harm. As a society, as we adjust to the new form of warfare, there will be a lot of confusion and distrust in the institutions that we formerly thought were trustworthy, such as the mainstream media or government officials. I'm not talking about politicians. I'm talking about your police, your firefighters, the people who are on the ground every day that you have to interact with. So there is a passage in the Christian Bible that talks about how every man's sins will be posted on his door. And I think this in some ways is a revelation of the current times we live in now with fifth generation warfare. So now that we've talked about that, let's talk about what hacktivism is. If you thought fifth generation warfare was scary, hacktivism should actually scare you even more. There is nothing more scary than one individual who, in their own mind, thinks their point of view or way of life should be imposed on the masses. As climate change angst grows, there will be more people who will use their knowledge of technology to wage war with those who they deem to be a threat, regardless of what the facts may be. If you remember the Occupy Wall Street movement in 2008 and 9, what would happen if another event similar to that happened? How would that experience be? How many individuals would take their knowledge to rob banks of their digital currency while indirectly robbing their neighbor in a random act of vigilantism? If people were no longer able to purchase food, would it be because a hacktivist attacked food processing plants over cow farts, or would they attack those same institutions because they felt wronged in some way? The human being is an emotional creature, and as fifth generation warfare is waged globally, what are the unintended consequences that will be determined to society as a whole? As an individual, you are more likely to be affected by hacktivism than fifth generation warfare, because activists are targeting what we consider modern conveniences. There are many groups out there like Antifa who want to reestablish segregation and racist policies, or PETA who want to stop cruel treatment of animals, and far-right groups who want a more authoritarian style of government while wrapping themselves in the cry of freedom. All of these groups have ideologies that are militant towards our modern society. Humans are humans, so there will always be someone who takes their fanaticism to an extreme. How likely is it that one of those fanatics will implement something that may be destructive to society and your way of living? So how can you be prepared for something like this? Because this could be pretty scary if you actually really look at the cause and effect and look at how all this is going. So you might be asking yourself how an individual does prepare for a scenario like this. Does this mean that you need to hoard more, or is there something else that you should be doing? Gathering food and other resources is only a small part of what you as an individual can do to prepare. This is the time when I start to talk to you about digital literacy and the importance of it. Digital literacy in this instance means that you are able to use technology to your benefit through self-education. The importance of digital literacy in Cybergeddon scenario is important because you as an individual need to know how to protect yourself from threats to your way of life. Your car has a computer in it, which means that it can be hacked. Your phone is a computer, so it can be hacked. Your printer and computer are connected to a network, so it can be hacked, and so on. taking the time to educate yourself how to secure the technological products that you own and that you need to rely on is the first and most important thing that you can do to lessen the impact of cyber threats to you and to those that you care about most. Take a deep breath, people. I know this can be pretty stressful, but take a deep breath, okay? There are many ways you can do this, and a lot of it requires that you change your way of thinking and conduct. Whether it be a smartphone or a PC, most of the business you do publicly is done using these mediums. So wouldn't it behoove you to educate yourself on device security? There are many ways you can do this, such as reading a book, taking free online classes, or asking a friend or family member to share their knowledge with you. And just something that happened to me yesterday is, my mentor, he was doing some work on my computer, and he pulled up my mail because he wanted me to check my email, and it logged right in. I didn't log myself out. What if that was somebody who I didn't trust, or somebody I didn't know, and then they got into my email? This happens at the library a lot. So also, you may want to consider the operating system that you are using. There are some major factors that you should consider when choosing an OEM, or original equipment manufacturer. Your operating system is going to be your first line of defense. I found that Linux is one of the most secure operating systems you can use for many reasons that I'm going to let you figure out on your own. The mainstream operating systems put out by OEMs tend to be, out of the box configurations that may leave many vulnerabilities, such as the Windows machine that advertised its hard drive that we could have just easily gotten into. And, as they attempt to do your thinking for you, whereas with Linux, it requires that you configure your machine to your liking to meet your security needs. Therefore, everything is turned off until you turn it on. Secondly, there are institutions such as your bank that you cannot protect. That is, unless you're working in their cybersecurity department. Learning how to secure your property is just one thing that you can do, but you can also take this as an opportunity for a career to secure not only your neighborhood but your community as well. The wars in the future will not be fought on the battlefield, but they're going to be fought using computers and technologies such as a smartphone or a laptop. This means that you don't have to enlist in the military or meet certain health requirements that the military has to serve and protect your country or community. So over the next few months, here on the Hobo Prepper, we will be covering topics like this to help you prepare yourself to take advantage of the opportunities that this knowledge will present. Although you may be looking around and thinking that this may be a little bit overwhelming, don't worry. I've established relationships with those who will be able to share information that will help you prepare for the future that is going to be at hand. Although those who I connect with may want their anonymity, they also want to share their knowledge because they feel it's their patriotic duty to do so. So I would like you guys to stay tuned. You guys know how to help the channel. Everything's down in the description. You can either help out monetarily or become a subscriber, or come over to Patreon, or leave a tip in the tip jar, or leave a thanks on the channel. Everything that you do helps, and gives me the opportunity and the time to be able to do the research that I need to, so that I can bring this material to you and help you guys become a more informed prepper. So thank you for watching. And again, this is the Hobo Prepper, and I am Friar Tuck.